Hello and thank you for joining me on this foodoffensive.com weekly video update. And I bring you a video every week. Sometimes I get behind, so I have to bring out a few at a time, but I've been working on a series of special reports concerning sweeteners and artificial, natural, everything. And it's going to be quite a lengthy series just because of all the stuff that's out there. But I think sugar is a big issue concerning our diet and health and all the things that have sugar in it and just our sweet tooth in general, and getting into all the things, what's good, what's bad, not just looking at all the bad things. And of course I've been working on a few videos concerning aspartame, because that's a huge one as far as a bad one is concerned, in my opinion. But we're going to look at also later on what is good to use, what, is sugar in general good, and things like that, and some of the health effects of that. So this week I'm continuing with the aspartame issue, and I'm going to finish it up this week with this last video here. But to jump right in order to get it all done, I've been running really tight on the time frame and the time limit that I have set for myself. So trying to fit it within the timeline. So I wanted to just conclude the aspartame little series of concerning the sweetener series here, and this is kind of a conclusion and kind of wrapping it up, kind of going over some other things and kind of looking at a couple of other things that I might not have covered in the last two videos. So looking at this, basically this first article here is from the unsponsored link. It's Consumer Reports Web Watch's weblog, and basically this is from quite a while back, but they had issued an article concerning there's a seal called the Health on the Net Foundation puts out this seal, the HON seal, HON, and basically the Calorie Control Council has received this seal. And this article, they basically pointed out the fact that they didn't follow all the rules, or they didn't have kind of pointing out the missteps of the Calorie Control Council. It's caloriecontrol.org, and the reason why I found this is because I was looking at aspartame, and of course when you type in aspartame in a search engine, you're going to bring up some of the main sites. And just like with the high fructose corn syrup series I did, pointing out the fact that all of the websites, and the main one that's a proponent of high fructose corn syrup, and the same ones that put out the advertisements talking about how high fructose corn syrup is good for you, that's the Corn Growers Association. So of course they're going to have a good spin on that, because they have a monetary gain to be made. And it's the same thing with the Calorie Control Council. If you look at their site, they're going to say how great aspartame is. Well, you got to look deeper. You got to look at where the money goes. You got to follow the money. And I found this article because basically the vice president for communications for the Calorie Control Council made a response to this gentleman that did the article. And I'm not going to look at every point of the article, but he actually points out all the points and why they're wrong. And then the one that wrote the initial article goes back and says, this is why. No, I still stand with my original, I'm not going to retract this. I still stand with my original opinion. But I was interested at the fact that one of his points that he makes, it's number 7 on here, you can see it highlighted. I always show screenshots here so you can see that. It's their financial disclosure. One of the things that's required by the HON principle and the HON seal is that it says the council discloses its funding sources on its companies and products page as required by the HON principles. So it's required for them to disclose where their funding comes from. And this is actually a good measure because, like I said, you got to follow the money. And that, by him pointing that out, it led me to see this. And I'm going to show you, I have the article and that'll be zipped up with all these files, but I wanted to show you here the website that I'm talking about. This is caloriecontrol.org. It says Healthy Eating and Exercise for Life. That's their trademark. So when you go to Sweeteners and Light, that's the first tab there, it brings up another list of links here, and it says companies and products. This is what he was referring to. This is a very old article that he was referring to, but it's still here on their site. You got to look at the companies and products. Now, going back to this article, based on this is their financial disclosure. It says the council discloses its funding sources. This is the source, the funding sources for their website, for their organization. It's on their companies and products page. That's capitalized. That's their products, company and products page, which is the one that I'm showing you right here. I'm going back to it. All of these companies are funding them. Well, look, Ajinomoto USA, that's the main maker of aspartame now. That's right there. Cadbury Adams in the confectionery business. Dr. Pepper Snapple Group, nonetheless possibly using aspartame or some other type of artificial sweetener. PepsiCo, they do that as well in their new Max soda. They use the sucralose and the aspartame in their drinks. So that I pointed out in the store shots that I've done. Sweet and Low. Coca-Cola Company, aspartame, big time. I mean, big time user of aspartame, Coca-Cola Company. So you got to look at the source. You got to look at the where the money's coming from. So any company, every time I read one of these sites, I'm like, oh, they might have a good point there. Maybe their product isn't so bad. Maybe aspartame isn't so bad. Maybe I'm gonna second guess myself on the other studies that I read and the other studies that I've looked at in the last few videos that I've done concerning aspartame. Maybe I'm wrong. Well, I follow the money here, and these are the companies that are giving them money, so of course they're going to go with what these companies sell. And so when they're making aspartame and they're giving you money, of course you're going to say their product, that aspartame, is good. So this kind of discredits them, in my opinion, and so that's why I wanted to point that out. That is so huge, because when you go out, and I encourage you to look at the facts, look at the research, go in and look for yourself. Don't just take my word for it. And that's why I try to show you the articles and make those available to you and show them right here on the video. Don't get caught up in the pros and cons. You gotta go into deep depth on each thing, and by doing that, I personally found that, hey, you got to follow the money here, and that's what's happened. Well, I pointed out, moving right along, the fact that Sweet Misery, this documentary on aspartame, is called Sweet Misery: A Poisoned World, and Dr. Mercola, I look at his sources quite a bit for my videos and for things concerning foods and food additives. And he basically says, if you drink artificial sweeteners, you must see this movie. And I'm not going to show his video there, but I am going to show in a couple of things I've highlighted here. He says, after all, millions of people drink diet sodas every day, and they aren't dropping dead like flies. And the government did approve this sweetener as safe, so it can't be too bad. Wrong, wrong, wrong. And he goes into the reasons why I'm pointing out this documentary, and how it does a great job of pointing out why. Because I sometimes second guess myself, and I think, oh, well, people drink this stuff all the time, or people eat GMO corn all the time, and we're not dropping dead. What's one or two food items here and there that contain all these bad things that I always talk about to stay away from? But the fact is, you got to look at the cancer rates off the chart. You got to look at the infertility that's off the chart, and think about these things, that over time this stuff has become an issue with our health, and we can't deny the things that are going on right now in our world and in our bodies, and in concerning health and the statistics that are out there. You cannot look at all the facts without making a correlation between what we're eating and the health problems that we're having. So I always just go back and correct myself when I think about how, well, maybe I'm second guessing myself. Well, I just go back and read some of this stuff and realize, well, no, not at all. But it just goes into talking about aspartame, how it was not too long ago, aspartame was on a Pentagon list of biowarfare chemicals submitted to Congress. So this is crazy. There's some crazy allegations that they're making against it. Aspartame complaints represent 80 to 85% of food complaints registered with the FDA. So that says something right there. 1991, the National Institutes of Health listed 167 symptoms and reasons to avoid the use of aspartame. So it just lists a few here, and then obviously the breakoffs from those. Aspartame may be found in over 9,000 consumable products. And just talking about the DVD, it talks about it has credible evidence that validates corporate fraud and manipulation. We looked at that, a couple of clips from there. I encourage you to get the whole video, support the director and the filmmaker. It says it's a must-see movie. The fact that tons of aspartame is pumped into the world population each year, knowingly and deliberately, especially with the historical and documented record of fraud and misrepresentation expertly defined by this movie, constitutes a conspiracy of the highest order as well as criminal negligence. And you'll see in the movie about that. But I highly encourage you seeing that movie. There's the cover right there. But I wanted to show you a couple more things from the video, talking about how Russell Blaylock in the video talking about neurotoxins, actually excitotoxins. He is a neurologist, so he covers that a lot concerning MSG and speaks out a lot about MSG and aspartame and the excitotoxins and what they can do to our brain and nervous system and some of the health effects from that. So I want to look at a clip of that real quick and then come back and finish up.
Sweetener. But now, after years of retesting this, most authorities agree, there's no question, that feeding MSG to animals produces this brain damage. It's not questioned any longer, it's a fact. There's even good studies to show that if you feed the pregnant animals the MSG, their offspring has impaired brain function. And when you measure the neurochemical analysis of the brain of the animal, it's impaired all the way through the animal's youth up until adulthood, and they never quite recover from it. The central mechanism that actually produces the destruction and damage to the brain is excitotoxicity. That's pretty well agreed upon now. The frightening thing is that we're adding tons of these excitotoxins to our food, either in the form of MSG or part of the aspartame molecule, which is aspartic acid, which is an excitotoxin.
Okay, so that concludes the short little series I've done on aspartame. I'm going to be moving right along to, in the next couple of weeks, another form of sugar, another form of sweeteners. Not sure what I'm going to do next, but I'm going to pick one that's kind of on a hot topic, go maybe a natural one, and try to look at the fact that is stevia really good? It's touted as this great alternative and a natural alternative, but is it being processed in a way that could be dangerous? Or maybe we'll get into sucralose. Maybe we'll get into some of the others. So until then, this is FoodOffensive.com's weekly video update. Thank you for joining me.